Multi-factor authentication and conditional access are two of the most important security features in Microsoft Entra ID, and they're often talked about as if they're the same thing. They're not. If you're responsible for securing Microsoft 365, Azure, or Entra ID, understanding the differences is critical. This video breaks down what MFA does, what conditional access does, and how they work together to strengthen an organization's security posture. Hello everyone, I'm Travis and welcome back to the channel. When the conversation turns to securing Microsoft Entra ID, Microsoft 365 or Azure, multi-factor authentication or MFA and conditional access are usually at the top of the list. In fact, they're mentioned together so often that it would be easy to think of them as the same thing. But while they're closely connected, they're two very different technologies with different purposes. In this video, we'll look at what each one does, where they fit into your identity security strategy, and how they complement each other to support a zero trust approach to access management. Before we jump in, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share the video with a friend or colleague. That really helps this channel grow and is truly appreciated. Also, be sure to check out my Securing Entra ID playlist for more content on MFA, conditional access, and identity security. If you're interested in going deeper, my courses are linked below. And a special thanks to my channel members, your support is appreciated. All right, let's get back to it. MFA and conditional access are tightly integrated within Microsoft Entra ID. Because of that, it's easy to assume they're the same thing. But understanding the role each one plays is essential if you want to build a secure and manageable cloud environment. Let's start with multi-factor authentication. At its core, MFA adds an additional requirement during sign-ins. Instead of relying on just username and passwords, users must provide more than one form of verification. That verification can come from something you know, such as a password, something you have, such as a hardware token or mobile device, or something you are, such as a fingerprint or facial recognition. MFA simply requires a combination of those factors before access is granted. Now, let's look at how MFA works in Microsoft Entra ID. Whether you're configuring MFA through the Entra Admin Center, the Azure portal, Microsoft Intune, or another Microsoft management interface, everything ultimately relies on the same Entra ID directory. Every user account in Entra ID contains a collection of attributes. These include details such as the user's name, user principal name or UPN, object ID, and many other properties. One of those properties is the user's registered authentication methods. This is an important concept to understand because MFA methods are part of the user account. In other words, the Entra ID user object contains the authentication methods that the user has registered and can use for authentication. You can see this by opening a user account in Entra ID and selecting authentication methods. This provides a view of the MFA methods currently registered on that account. As administrators, we want to control which authentication methods users can register and use. That's exactly what the Authentication Methods policy in Entra ID is designed for. From here, you can enable or disable various authentication methods, including Microsoft Authenticator, Passkey, OAuth tokens, Microsoft Hello for Business, and more. You can also target specific groups to determine who can use each method. One important thing worth mentioning, Microsoft announced that SMS and voice-based authentication methods will be retired in February of 2027. If users still rely on SMS or phone calls for MFA, now's a good time to start planning a transition to a stronger and more secure authentication method. If you'd like guidance on that migration, check out my Securing Entra ID playlist, link below. Now here's something many organizations overlook. Not all MFA methods provide the same level of protection. For example, SMS-based authentication can be vulnerable to SIM swapping attacks, and users can also be tricked into approving push notifications through MFA fatigue attacks or social engineering. On the other hand, methods such as FIDO2 passkeys and Windows Hello for Business are considered phishing-resistant and provide significantly stronger protection. So what happens if we want different users to meet different authentication requirements? For example, maybe standard users can sign in with the Microsoft Authenticator app or Windows Hello for Business, while privileged administrators must use phishing-resistant methods such as a FIDO2 security key or passkey. That's where authentication strengths come in. After you've enabled authentication methods within Entra ID, authentication strengths allow you to define exactly which method satisfies a particular authentication requirement. Microsoft provides 3 built-in authentication strengths: multi-factor authentication, passwordless MFA, and phishing-resistant MFA. If those don't meet your needs, you can create a custom authentication strength as well. Coming up, you'll see how these authentication strengths integrate directly with conditional access policies to provide far more granular control over access decisions. Now that we understand the available MFA options, let's talk about how MFA is enforced. If you open users in Entra ID, you'll find the option for Per-User MFA. This allows administrators to enable, disable, or enforce MFA on an individual user basis. My recommendation is simple: don't use it. For starters, Per-User MFA doesn't distinguish between stronger and weaker authentication methods, and SMS code is treated the same as a phishing-resistant passkey. Beyond that, management options are limited, compatibility can be problematic in certain scenarios, and it conflicts with conditional access policies. Per-User MFA is considered a legacy approach and shouldn't be part of a modern Entra ID security strategy. So if MFA defines how users authenticate, where does conditional access fit in? Think of conditional access as a decision-making engine. Conditional access evaluates signals during the sign-in process and then applies a set of if-then rules to determine whether access should be granted, blocked, or granted only under specific conditions. And while MFA is one possible requirement, it's not the only thing conditional access can enforce. Organizations use conditional access to implement zero trust security by making access decisions based on identity, location, device state, risk level, applications, and other signals. Instead of requiring MFA for every sign-in, you can create intelligent policies. For example, you might allow users to access resources from a trusted network without additional challenges, while requiring MFA when users are connecting from outside the organization. You might require phishing-resistant authentication for administrative accounts, or require compliant devices before granting access to sensitive Microsoft 365 resources. This is where the relationship between MFA and conditional access becomes clear. MFA methods and authentication strengths define the authentication options available to users. Conditional access determines when those methods are required. If we look at the grant control in a conditional access policy, we can choose to require MFA or require a specific authentication strength. That allows us to enforce exactly the level of authentication needed based on the scenario. So while MFA methods are attributes associated with a user account, conditional access uses those methods as a broader access control decision. They're different technologies, but together they form a powerful foundation for zero trust identity security in Microsoft Entra ID. Now, some organizations still rely on Per-User MFA, whether due to licensing requirements or because of the complexity involved in implementing conditional access. In those situations, a better alternative is the Entra ID security defaults. Security defaults provide a baseline set of security protections, including requiring MFA. This can be enabled across the entire tenant with minimal configuration. If you'd like to learn more about security defaults, I have a dedicated video covering that topic in the playlist link below. I hope this video helped clarify the differences between multi-factor authentication and conditional access, and more importantly, how they work together to secure Microsoft 365, Azure, and Microsoft Entra ID. If you'd like to continue building your knowledge of identity security, be sure to check out that Securing Entra ID playlist that I've mentioned a few times already. The link is below. And if you found this video helpful, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below letting me know how you're using MFA and conditional access in your environment. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.